Kamala Harris's interview in the New York Times is one of the most amazing profiles I have ever read and shows once again what every single reason Americans did not vote for her. Let's take a look. This week, the New York Times published a long profile of Kamala Harris on her book tour plugging 107 days. And it paints a picture of someone who has not learned from a single mistake she made as a candidate. But before we get into all that, we have to start off with the best part of the article, where she's talking about her legacy after the campaign. Quote, she is enjoying the freedom from what she calls the transactional constrictions of campaigning, of asking people for a vote. Her place in history is already secure, and she knows it. I understand the focus on 28 and all that, she said in the interview, but there will be a marble bust of me in Congress. I am a historic figure like any vice president of the United States ever was. A historic figure. People barely care who the vice president is when they are vice president. When they stop being vice president, then people really don't care. The only vice presidents that matter are the ones that went on to become president, and that's why they matter. The marble bust might be up, but no one is going to be visiting. And by the way, what a revealing quote there about the freedom from transactional constrictions of campaigning and asking people for a vote. Now, campaigning doesn't look fun, I get that. But it is also a way for a presidential candidate to meet and understand the people they are trying to represent. If it's somehow demeaning to you to ask people to vote for you, are you really in this for the right reasons? And that's a question that comes back again and again and again through this profile. Why did Kamala Harris run for president? What is the burning desire in her to serve? It's certainly a question we all had in the election campaign. What did she think, sitting on the sidelines, about what Joe Biden was doing and how things would be different if she were in charge? Remember this horror interview?
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
And it turns out she still can't answer that question from the New York Times profile. In her book, she laments her botched appearance on the ABC's The View in 2024, when she said that nothing comes to mind about what she would have done differently from Mr. Biden. Yet even in the recent interview with The Times, the first mistakes she cited were more strategic than substantive. She said she would have rearranged the order of the administration's priorities, focusing first on extending child tax credits and paid family leave. Then, pressed for an actual misstep, she added not doing more to pressure Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel for how he was waging the Gaza war as it related to innocent Palestinians. Putting more emphasis on extending child tax credits and being a bit meaner to Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know about you, that's not the way to win over a vast voting public. But let's be honest, Kamala Harris had a lot going against her, but the main senile elephant in the room was Joe Biden. So how does she feel about his last year in office now? Back to the article. On stage in Nashville, she was asked basically if Mr. Biden had done her dirty, if he had doomed her by dropping out so late and privately urging her not to distance herself from him. Her answer began with, I think there are many variables that were at play, and eventually landed on perhaps. Now that's the kind of humanity, growth, beautiful words you'd expect from ChatGPT. But again, that was another one of Kamala Harris's problems. For a former lawyer turned politician, she is a terrible communicator. We usually have no idea what she's on about, and the rare times that we do, it's useless. Remember this catchphrase she was wheeling out?
Can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
Well, that hasn't been solved either. I actually feel sorry for this author. You can actually hear him tear his hair out trying to get some new angle on Kamala Harris, but she is just simply not giving him anything to work with. How good is this passage? The elevator pitch of Miss Harris's ideology remains as elusive as ever. In public and in private, she has been exploring issues of trust, misinformation, social media, community, and artificial intelligence. She is particularly obsessed with young people and their growing disillusionment, which she shares. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear a politician start complaining about trust, misinformation, and social media, it rarely rises above the level of, I don't like it when the internet is mean to me, and I would like to pass laws to stop that happening. But I digress. Let's keep going. The mission statement of her new non-profit group, KDH for the People, what a name, is so broad as to be unobjectionable to almost anyone. To strengthen communities across America through the promotion of economic opportunity, justice, and protection of fundamental freedoms. If Miss Harris were to run again, it is almost anyone's guess what the campaign would be about. Just like the last one. But there's another side of Kamala Harris that comes out of this interview. And it sounds harsh to say this about someone I've never met, but it really sounds like a weakness of spirit. Now, it's something that first came out in an interview she did with Stephen Colbert plugging this book.
Shouldn't we also be inside the system? And that has been my career. And recently, I made the decision that for now, I don't want to go back in the system. I think it's broken.
Now, the profile references that interview, saying that now what she sees as a capitulation of American institutions to Mr. Trump, law firms, universities, the news media, has shaken her confidence in the old order. But I can't sympathize with that. And not just because I don't think the system is actually broken. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who genuinely thinks Donald Trump is an existential threat to American democracy and the way of life. And not just that, but put yourself in the shoes of someone who thinks that, but is also a former vice president with access to a gigantic fundraising machine, so you have the ability to do something about it. Now, what kind of person decides that the right thing to do is roll over and not even try? Not a serious person, that's for sure. But you know what? It's her profile. Let's let Kamala have the last word. She has mostly been a bystander in the Democratic Party's raging debate over its direction. Should Democrats veer to the left or center? More populism? More progressivism? Both? Neither. What exactly should the party stand for? This sounds really corny, she said in the wide-ranging interview with the New York Times, but we do have to stand for the people. And I know that sounds corny, I know that, but I mean it. I mean it. Well, if only she knew what the people stood for. Sorry, couldn't help myself, had to get the last word in. But that is it for me. Remember to like and subscribe to Sky News Australia to stay up to date with not just my videos, but all of the other great commentators we have here.